Ricky Gervais's new show Alley Cats has been released on Netflix, and it's done the impossible. It's brought the world a little bit more together, because left-wing newspapers, right-wing newspapers, and even GB News itself are all saying the same thing. They may not agree on taxes and immigration, but they all agree that Alley Cats is a career low for the once heralded British comedian. But is it really that bad? Spoiler alert, yes, and if so, it is, why? Why does this 6-part series feel as pleasant as a hairball stuck in your throat? Trigger warning, die-hard Ricky Gervais fans might be offended, but remember, it's just jokes. This is Alley Cats. Please, someone, just find me the funny. The plot of Alley Cats is incredibly simple, to the point the word plot seems almost redundant. However, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing overall. Ricky Gervais has described the show as a cross between a sitcom and a Pixar movie with swearing, and although I can't find the Pixar qualities to save my life, I don't think talking animals immediately puts you in the same league, the sitcom comparison is clear. Many sitcoms can simply be described as a group of friends live in city and do weird things, and Alley Cats fits that mould pretty much perfectly. Every episode starts with a core gang in their main setting, this being an abandoned house with a grotty sofa and a working TV. It's the same premise as the apartments in Friends, the bar in Cheers, or the office in The Office. It's the character's base. They watch TV, comment on it like they're on a feline version of Gogglebox before venturing off into town. They get up to something, may that be attacking a fat kid or hunting for mice, before returning to their base to sleep. The closest thing to an overarching plot comes from the character Kitten, a young cat who has wandered off from home and can't remember how to get back. The gang say they will help, giving them some sort of mission for the series. That's it. And honestly, that's a pretty good starting point for a sitcom. It's simple, it's malleable, making it easy to fit many different stories and ideas into it without ever breaking the core concept, and that's the kind of structure the best sitcoms usually follow. However, when I said that was it, I meant it. That's it. They watch telly, they venture out, they do something incredibly mundane, they return home and sleep, rinse and repeat, for 6 episodes. There's a romance subplot between Gervais's Gus and Kerry Godliman's Lara, although we're never given a reason to care or root for the relationship. Honestly, it's more of a time filler than an actual story the show's excited to tell. There's dumb cat Olive's crush on posh cat Ponce, which is as surface level as I just described, and Kitten wants to get home, but again we're given no reason to care about this. It's like the cute drawing is meant to evoke all the emotion for the audience. Alley Cats has a starting point, a base to build from, but it's that's been put on screen. It feels more like an animated pitch deck than a fully realised series of television. And I'm not saying it has to have this grand, complicated, over-the-top plot, but it does need to have something. Shows that aren't about anything are rarely actually that plain. I know it's a very different kind of show, but I have seen the royal family described as a plotless show, but it's nonsense. There's so much story going on in every episode. It might look like a show where people sit and watch TV on the surface, but beneath it there's romance and heartbreak and an ever-changing world. There's class and loss and family bonds. It's so much, with so much happening without ever leaving the sofa. Alley Cats doesn't have that. Alley Cats is what you see is what you get, and it throws in some sad little moments which we'll get to later, but it feels lifeless. But all that being said, the plot doesn't really matter. Alley Cats just wants to make you laugh. So what are the jokes like? Well, there aren't any. It's a sitcom without jokes. The swearing is meant to be the humour, but the swearing is humourless. I can't believe how many times the C word is said, and I'm not saying it because I'm offended by it, I won't say it because the algorithm will hate me if I do. But the C word is said so many times in this, and yet it evokes nothing. Maybe it will evoke shock for some viewers, but I haven't lived a sheltered life and I swear all the fucking time. So shock? No. A laugh? God, I wish. By the 3rd episode, even the eye rolls had stopped because I got so used to it being said. It's never a punchline, it's just a word. A word that is said over and over again that it becomes so boring. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you will know there is an episode where the word space babies is said 100 fucking times. Well, this is the adult version. Alley Cats is Ricky Gervais's Space Babies. And the entire script is littered with constant swearing, with every fucking other fucking word being a fucking shitting cocking fuck. And I don't care about swearing in comedy, as long as it's clever. I think a lot of the time swearing is used lazily, where the word shit is replaced for a proper cleverly written punchline. That's the problem. The swear isn't the issue, it's the fact it's not used in a clever comedic way. And I think a lot of this show was improvised, but if you have to swear constantly to fill the silence during an improvisation, you're not that great at improvisation. The thick of it is full of swearing, but it earns every one because it feels different. The insults are so clever yet stupid. The poshos in their overpriced suits swearing their head off at the smallest of inconveniences is the joke. It's not expecting you to find the word shit funny, it's the over-exaggerated ridiculous characters and the situation and the world that these people populate that you're laughing at. The swearing is part of the comedy, it's a tool that they're using, but it's not the finished product. Alley Cats uses swearing like 13-year-olds do, trying to be cool and shocking, and isn't it hilarious I just called him a cock? And you know what? Maybe it was the first time, but by the 50th time it begins to wear a bit thin. Also, calling someone a tiny little penis of a man is just inherently funnier. Talking of genitals, there's a lot of talking about genitals in Alley Cats, with a character Puke having only one characteristic. He's a little bit... Every episode we are gifted with a scene where Puke tells us about another animal he's had it off with. The animal changes each time, but the story and the delivery of that story remains the same. It's almost a catchphrase of the series, and it's tiresome from the start. Talking about sex in comedy hasn't been shocking for well over a decade. There has to be more to it than that. Haha, the cat's pervy is so base level. We'll talk a bit about Gervais's other works in a bit, but there's a great scene in Extras where Kate Winslet starts listing off dirty talk like she's reading a shopping list. The fact it's Kate Winslet, the ease that she finds rattling off these phrases, all while at work dressed as a nun, is funny. It's the shock and juxtaposition. Then you have the pure horror and shock of the others reacting to her. That's why the joke works. The pervy cat being a perv is as predictable as Ryan Murphy noshing off a serial killer. That's just how the world works, there has to be more. But Puke isn't anything other than his stories. He isn't pathetic, he isn't secretly lovable, he's not insecure, he's just a perv called Puke. His ramblings remind me of Jay from The Inbetweeners, a superior comedy character in every way, because Jay would sit and monologue about his sex life, but the joke wasn't just what he was saying, but how pathetic he looked doing it. We as the audience knew he was lying, everyone in the scene knew he was lying, he was so desperately wanting to be cool that he became the saddest virgin amongst them. That was the bit. If his stories were just true, which Puke's are because we're never given a reason to doubt them, Jay wouldn't be this pathetically funny character, he'd just be a red raw knobhead. Alley Cat's attempts at jokes is exhausting because they are, for the most part, just long scenes of characters calling something or someone a swear word and the other characters laughing while Ponce says something along the lines of, "Don't say that, that's not nice." But of course, in this day and age, comedy can't be bad anymore. You're either correct for finding it funny or you're a loser who must be offended by it. Well, let me just say that I found nothing offensive in Alley Cats. I actually think it's painfully, boringly safe. Will someone somewhere be offended by Alley Cats? Yes, 100%, because someone somewhere is always offended by something, and believe it or not, that's not a new concept. People have the right to be offended and people have the right to ignore them, but some comedians have realised that constantly bringing up people being offended gets them interviews, so it's become part of their PR and celebrity persona. When Ricky Gervais talks about cancel culture or offence, he's not doing it to preserve or save the comedy industry. He's cashing in on a very nice check, while the "you can't say anything these days" brigade lap it up, defending the blandest of jokes in the process. But contrary to popular belief, you can say anything. You can joke about gender, race, sex, sexuality, class, death, big fatties, whatever. The joke just has to be good, and it has to be more than pointing at someone and going ha 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 ha. Billy Connolly's routine about obese people at Disneyland is one of my favourite comedy routines, because it's ridiculous. There's clever wordplay and fantastic funny imagery. He also takes the piss out of himself constantly. He doesn't paint himself out to be the voice of reason. He's very obviously just taking the mick. Mickey Flanagan's trans joke is one of the best I've heard because it completely goes against what you're expecting him to say. Saying if you really think trans people have an unfair advantage in sport, stop complaining and put a bet on at Ladbrokes. That's just a great simple joke. Gervais can say anything. Netflix has given him a massive platform to say what he likes. It just turns out he doesn't have that much to say. Alley Cats flirts with being controversial, but it just rehashes things we've seen multiple times before, including in Ricky Gervais's old work. There's a fat ginger kid, because of course there is. He's called the C word, the cats talk about attacking and eating him, and the scene ends. That's it. They point at a fat person and say, "Oh look, they're fat." It's incredibly safe. Like, sorry if this is wrong, but if you want to be shocking, you have to eat the fucking kid. Go nuts and eat the child. Have the body slowly rotting in the basement over the course of the series. Just do something a bit out there and nearer the knuckle. You can't just repeat the scene from Afterlife with cats and assume that's a job well done. The series features jokes about charities for Africa, gay people, AIDS, disability, but it's nothing I didn't hear on the playground growing up. If the juvenile first attempts at humour is the kind of comedy you're fighting for as a 65-year-old multi-millionaire, I think that's sad. People talk about The Office as redefining comedy. For one of the creators of a groundbreaking show to lower themselves to playground taunts seems like a massive waste of potential. Because I don't need things to be politically correct. I just need them to be funny. And I have heard much funnier, darker, scarier, weirder, creepier, ruder, cruder stories and jokes from random people in the pub. And Ricky has done it before too. The racism episode of Extras is much nearer the knuckle and funnier than anything Alley Katz coughs up on screen. I just find the whole shock culture, begging to be controversial, incredibly strange. You're a comedian writing a comedy. Surely the only thing that should matter is whether it's funny or not. You shouldn't want to throw a joke about AIDS in to prove that you're not afraid to joke about AIDS. You should instead joke about AIDS because you came up with such an amazing joke that you think it'd be criminal to cut it. It's why I hate the whole you can't say anything, everyone is offended bollocks. One, because it's not true, and two, it's allowed for some of the laziest comedy and stand-up routines I've ever seen. But if you dare say that, it's because you were offended and a snowflake or whatever. But no, I just thought your AIDS joke was kinda shit. Stop crying about it. They say the best comedies can make you laugh 1 minute and cry the next. Alley Katz attempts this by throwing in a sad yet profound moment towards the end of each episode. Like comedy, what makes someone emotional and sad is subjective, I get that, but my god, you can't just throw in 3 characters into a show, 3 of the fuckers, where their whole purpose is to die, so the main character can be the voice of reason, spout something about death, and expect that to pull on the heartstrings. You have to earn emotional moments, you have to work for that rug pull, yet Alley Katz ends each of its episodes with a sad needle drop as Gervais rattles on about either the meaning of life, why people are shit, death, family, whatever. It's so soppy and twee and without any real substance. There are 2 scenes involving Gus's mum, neither feature any jokes or real proper plot, and she dies in the second one. She's not a character, she's a device for yet another sad, profound moment to end on. In one episode, Kitten gets ill. It's not the plot of that episode, but instead just there so Gervais's character can be an atheist again and then he can pray. The kitten is well again and we move on. One cat gets run over, so we can talk about death and living on in people's memory. Another cat dies, so we can talk about death and living on in people's memory. And I say all this because Gervais can write pathos, he can write emotion and love, but he doesn't bother to here. I can't believe how lifeless these life-affirming moments are. And yes, they're as subtle as a hammer to the head, but for me the real reason comes down to the lack of real character Gus has. Everything mentioned in the show, from sex to death, are things Ricky Gervais has mentioned or joked about before, and will no doubt continue to in his next shows and tours. Gus's dark jokes are Gervais's jokes. Gus's anger at humanity is Gervais's anger. Gus is just an animated Gervais, but audiences connect to characters, and those characters need to be complex. An audience needs to get to know a character. We need to know their likes and dislikes, their contradictions. The more we learn about a character, the more we connect with them, begin to sympathise and feel for them throughout a story. It's this connection that tugs the heartstrings. But Alley Katz makes it impossible to form this connection, because I know Gus from the very first scene. Gervais isn't playing a character. The animated cat is just for show. There's nothing interesting to learn about Gus, the lead character in a sitcom, because we all know who Ricky is, how his mind works, and what makes him tick. So when Gus talks about the meaning of life and death, it doesn't feel like a fictional character's monologue. It feels like Gervais himself is talking directly at you, telling you exactly how to feel and think in life. All these sad moments don't feel like plot beats, but excuses for Gervais to talk about something else on his mind. There is a scene in Alley Katz where the song "There Is a Light That Never Goes Out" by the Smiths plays, and I was suddenly hit with a realisation. Because my mum has always described Morrissey as an intellectual arsehole, a man who is incredibly clever but incredibly off-putting. And as I was watching the scrappy animated cats play in the road, I realised that intellectual arsehole is exactly how I think about Gervais these days. Because he is incredibly clever. The Office was a groundbreaking piece of television, and Extras is one of my favourite comedies of all time, 100% my favourite thing he's put his name to. And of course, Stephen Merchant co-created both of those with Gervais, but he's not in Alley Katz, so we're not talking about him today. And I don't follow the idea that Merchant was actually the funny one. I think both of them worked perfectly together, and both deserve the praise for the shows they created. Back then, Gervais was a comedian, writer and actor, but now Ricky Gervais seems to be a brand in itself, and that brand seems to almost be more important than the projects. We all remember his now iconic turn at hosting the Golden Globes, where each one he roasted the celebrities and poked fun at how pathetic the awards ceremony was as a whole. He put on this show that he was above it all, so it feels very weird to see that man constantly talking on social media about his triumphs and sticking it to the negative doubters. Now obviously you've got to promote your show, there's nothing wrong with that, but it reads as more than this. A lot of the time it's worded like he's proving the critics and cancellers wrong. There's a desperation to still prove himself like he had at the beginning of his career, although he's now a multi-millionaire and arguably one of Britain's most famous comedians of all time. Being the man who's not afraid to say it like it is has become his whole persona. People think he's brutally honest, others controversial, others a dick, but really everyone should hear his name and just immediately think, oh yeah, funny bloke. Because he is. Hidden beneath the ego and the social justice warrior pretense is a man who fucking loves to laugh, but I don't remember the last time he posted or made a show taking the piss out of himself. If we look at The Office and Extras, in both he plays a character who rarely gets it right, a character who can be a dick and bloody stupid. In Extras, Andy thinks he's better than everyone else, and it's shown to us to be a bad thing. We may like him, but we rarely get through an episode thinking he's the perfect top bloke. Compare that with Afterlife, a hugely popular show that I couldn't stand, where his character Tony is forever the hero of the scene, may that be fighting with a waitress or a charity worker. He may be moany and a bit brash, but he's the voice of reason, putting the world to rights as the viewing public cheers at his bravery. For me, I find Gervais's persona now incredibly sad, because I think he's become the sort of celebrity he once made fun of, the sort of character he once would have played to take the piss. Gervais's star persona has stripped away his silliness bit by bit and replaced it with this seemingly angry man who can't quite believe that some people don't find him funny, or think there's better jokes to make than tearing down trans people for the 100th time. And look, this is just my opinion and many people will disagree. I think if this video does well, the comment section will be horrific. Afterlife was a mega success. I wish I fucking wrote it, I'd be minted, and Alley Cats will do well too, but for me, it's sadly the worst thing Gervais has ever written. Because once again, Gervais has proved to himself and everyone else that you can in fact say anything. So let's just hope the next thing he says has an actual punchline.